can't, oh.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Crescent City Council meeting for Monday, October 21st, at 6 p.m. And we'll open our session. If you'd please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Murray?
Here.
Councilmember Shalom?
Here.
Councilmember Gastineau?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Holly?
Here.
And Mayor Eniak.
Here, thank you. And Councilmember Murray, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Did you light it?
Thank you.
Salute and pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We've just come out of a closed session meeting, and Mr. Black, our attorney, do you have anything to report out of that meeting?
Mayor, no final actions were taken in closed session.
Okay, and we didn't complete our closed session, so we'll return after our regular meeting. We have no acknowledgements this evening. On our consent agenda, we have 3 items: the approval of the regular minutes for October 7th, the approval of the warrant claims through October 8th, or through the 21st rather, and approval of our biweekly payroll for October 5th and 11th. So if there's a motion for approval.
Move to approve. I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Any public discussion on our 3 items for consent? Seeing none, would you please pull the vote?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Gastineau?
Yes.
Councilmember Shalom?
Yes.
Councilmember Murray?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Holly?
Yes.
And Mayor Eniak.
Yes, thank you. Under reports and presentations, we do have one tonight. We have a presentation by Nanette Yandel on health in all of our policies. And come on up.
Good evening. So, does everyone have the PowerPoint up?
Get that set, and we also have it in our packets, in our
Yes.
agendas.
Yes.
Thank you.
I can go ahead and get started. if
Go
you'd
ahead.
like. Okay. So my name is Nanette Yandel, and I'm the Public Health Policy Coordinator for Del Norte County. And I really wanted to share with you guys about health in all policies and talk about some directions that Crescent City can take regarding health in all policies. So this is slide number 2. It's really what health in all policies is. And it's a collaborative approach to improve health by incorporating health considerations into decision making across all policy sectors and across all sectors and policy areas. It actually started in 2010 with an executive order, and it placed the Health and All Policies Task Force underneath the Strategic Growth Council. So at the state level, there's 19 agencies, offices, and departments that are included in this, and it's just a way that we can use health. We can look at all the different departments through a health lens, and I'll get into that a little bit further in a moment. So the third slide talks about why do we need health in all policies. So as you guys know, environments where we live, work, and play shape health outcomes, being able to walk on the sidewalk, lots of other things. And policy decisions made by non-health agencies also shape those environments. So when we're talking about improving the health of our community, what we're talking about is improving those overall environments. So a collaborative approach that includes all departments is really necessary. And then the next slide, slide number 4. So the first image that you'll see is it's all the Crescent City departments put together, and then what we can do in order to include health in all policies is to use a health lens and use a health lens analysis. There's health impact assessments and there's also health lens analysis. There's a lot of similarities between the two, and what I'm proposing is using a health lens analysis as an evaluative tool, and it could be used for the strategic plan, it could be used for the general plan. So it's really just looking at policies, a way of looking at policies and providing recommendations, using an evidence-based approach. It's a way that we can see where we're already including some health benefits or where there might be some challenges or other issues that we might want to address. And there's 5 stages there of how to do a health lens analysis, and it's really creating a project, having a plan, and then the policy recommendations would be that final report. And then if you go to the next slide, so a healthy community framework is one of the things for us to keep in mind, because when we're talking about health and what is a healthy community, it's important for us to know. And also in your guys' packets, there's a whole paper on what is a healthy community. But a few highlights are that it meets the basic needs of the people in the community, that it includes the social and economic development of the people in the community, and it also has health and social equity, and these are just a few components. In order to have a healthy community, of course, we need to take action. I mean, that's why all of us are here, right? So part of taking action that the Crescent City has obviously already undertaken, there's the list of 11 just examples of different things that have already been done. And these are examples that are actually health and all policy examples. So this is something that I've talked about to the task force at the state level, the California Department of Public Health. They're very excited to hear that Del Norte County and Crescent City are already taking these steps and already making these actions. But it hasn't been something that's come together in a way that is a little bit more systematic, so that way, you know, other entities like at the state level know that we're doing this work and that this is where we're headed and that there's resources available for us. The final slide is actually next steps that we can take in Crescent City for a health and all policies approach. The first one, of course, is a resolution adoption, which is really just saying, yes, this is something that we want in our community. There's a sample that I attached there as well for you guys. And the strategic plan for 2014, I actually was able to work with city manager and provide an analysis, health analysis recommendations for the strategic plan, and that's something that can be included. And sometimes it's just as small as changing some wording, but for us to understand that health is an outcome that we're all reaching to, and if we don't look at economic development and see how it's intertwined with health, there might be a disassociation between different community groups, different policies that could support one another, that can decrease the resources that we're using and make them go further as well. The third item is the health analysis of the Crescent City General Plan. And this is something that I can do and provide a report for you, for all of you. I could even have it available, I'm thinking by the springtime, and it can be just an analysis of where are we, what recommendations, other health recommendations, and where do we have to go. And this isn't something that, oh, we need to change the general plan, because we all know what that would be like, but we do know that what changes can help improve where we're already at. So it's building on our strengths. The fourth one is a city employee wellness policy. So looking at the personnel policy, there isn't currently a wellness policy. This is something that we can also do and include a lot of the components that we already have, but towards improving the health. And when we look at the examples, the employee pool pass, the healthy vending, all these are options that we're already doing, but it makes Crescent City a place that, you know, people want to come to. They see the health impact that we're making toward our community. So other than that, it's really health as a shared goal, and I just wanted to share this with you and bring this to your attention, and hear any comments or questions that you have.
I have a comment. We also have the crime-free multi-housing project, which I'd like to see added to that list.
Sure.
Because the chief and a lot of people have worked really hard on it, and I think it's been really effective. So
Absolutely.
no smoking and safety on the playgrounds and that type of thing. And we even got some computers for one of the multi-housing, two computer rooms. So, you know, for kids to do homework or people to do research and that kind of thing. So I'd like to see that. And so I heard you say that you would help us with this, because we have the HEAL campaign, but that was a resolution, and then we are focused on the health of our community, but this drills down a little bit more, it sounds like. So
Yeah.
like the analysis and the strategic plan and the general plan part.
So I'm really glad that you brought up the HEAL campaign. I was actually hoping that you would.
Oh, good.
So the HEAL campaign, actually, I was working with the director because I was trying to see where we can go with the HEAL campaign. That's something I talked to you guys about like 9 months ago, about where we can go from there. And the HEAL campaign, as well as a few other initiatives, are heading toward the health and all policies because they're more inclusive. So HEAL campaign is still there. It's still active. It's actually now spreading out a bit to the national level, but they're including health and all policies and working really closely. So it's something that as it will come up as we're working on some of these different policies, but just making sure that we have that broader approach. And regarding the other component, My position is funded through the California Endowment, and that's to take health and all policies and bring it to the community. So I'm here to do that.
Yeah, we already have them here, and I saw that. I
Yeah.
looked it up on the web today, too, and I believe the county adopted the HEAL resolution,
Yes.
too, for so it'd be countywide, which was really great. So, so great. That's all my comments.
You know,
on
I was looking at this, and we actually, as a city, have done a lot of the health and all policies. We have 11 items there that are listed on what we're doing as a city, and we're trying to move ahead and go even further. We just finished our Safe Routes to School the other day. We're not finished it, but did another Safe Routes to School a couple of weeks ago, last week.
Isn't that the walk to school day?
The walk to
yeah.
school or bike to school day, we're working it, we've done that each year. We've passed our social host ordinance, housing inspecting, we're doing that with our code enforcement.
Yeah.
And in fact, we're taking down houses that are about to fall down and are health hazards, health and safety hazards. We've done our smoking, we have a public pool, our low-income housing availability, we've been doing that for years. And our parks and recreation, we do, you've probably seen Kidstown out there, and we do have a lot of healthy activities planned for our new park. I don't know if you've seen our
The master
drawing
plan.
of all
Oh,
the
yes,
stuff that we have,
absolutely.
as we await funding for that. So it's nice to know that we're right in there with the best of cities on
Absolutely.
doing our part.
Yes, and like I said before, the Health and All Policies Task Force at the state level, one of the questions they keep asking me is, what can we do to support you? So as we move forward, this is something I just talked to her earlier today. Like as we hear like different areas where we need support, that's something that I would like to help the city find those
And we will
avenues.
certainly let you know as we apply for state and federal grants for our park to
Yeah.
keep our community healthy. It would be
Absolutely.
nice to have a letter of support in that.
Absolutely.
No, since I have your ear and you work for the endowment, speaking of Safe Routes to School, it's not in the city limits, but it's very close by, and that's El Dorado Avenue that goes down to the high school but passes by, basically is a route between Joe Hamilton and Crescent Elk and Bess Maxwell and high school, and there are like no lights on that street. And there's a lot of kids that play sports, and I see them walking in the dark at night, and it seems very unsafe. So I would like to identify that as a priority for Safe Routes to School.
Okay, and if that's all right with you, then that's something that I'll talk, not at this meeting with you
Yes.
about further, because I know some different steps we can take to go that direction,
That'd be
especially
great.
with your support.
Yeah, thank you.
Another project that probably should be identified is the 9th Street traffic project that we're working on. We're making improvements up and down that 9th Street corridor, which of course goes past Crescent Elk and Joe Hamilton. So that should improve the safety significantly for those
Traffic
children running
calming.
from-
Yes.
We're adding bike lanes, and then at 9th and E, where Crescent Elk, by the cheese factory, Crescent Elk and Joe Hamilton are near, we are narrowing that roadway for cars to make it easier for adults and children to cross without being exposed to traffic lanes as much. And that's coming up this spring.
And as you know, on the Local Transportation Commission,
Yes.
they just finished their infrastructure and audit study, so they're identifying some of these communities, and at that last meeting that we had when they talked about the report, we talked about Crescent Elk in particular as an addition to, with some of the needs that are around there regarding traffic calming.
And I'm
some other
glad
measures.
that you're here to remind us, because sometimes when you're on committees, you're thinking about different things, and you don't always think about the health aspect of it. It's nice to be reminded and to implement it in our programs.
Thank you. That's what Health and All Policies is about.
I have one more thing, since we talked about bike and walk to school. Mary Peacock has a dirt field across the street, and when I did the bike and walk to school, I was talking with one of the teachers, and it's in the county, but I was wondering, maybe, does the county have a noise ordinance? Because it's very disruptive to have the dirt motorbikes across from the school, and it's making all this racket, so maybe you could find out if there's a noise ordinance.
Absolutely. I do not have an answer, but I can definitely
Yeah,
give you
that's
one.
fine.
Yeah.
I understand that, but I was going to mention it later on, but since you're here, I'll put you in the hot seat. Okay.
Add it to the
All right,
list.
thanks.
Any other council comments?
Just as you can imagine, the issue for us, which is pretty consistent with everything we do, is the cost of implementing health initiatives.
Yes.
So I appreciate your comment on the proposed resolution that it says within available resources.
Yes.
So the idea is to get the commitment, but unless there's available resources, we wouldn't be bound by that commitment, I don't think.
Right, and one of the reasons why I'm bringing the health and all policies approach is because it brings that economic development piece to health and equity. So it finds out how can we collaborate, if the police are doing this job and the planning department's doing this job, is there some I'm just using this as an example, but is there some overlap where we can decrease the use of some of those financial resources to have them stretch longer? And that's one thing that health and all policies can do. It's not super structured because it's different for every community. So that health lens analysis, that analysis will help us see where we can maybe, instead of saying this money goes to this department, this maybe is for certain projects, it's going to be a collaboration. It will cut down the cost for both departments. I mean, overall, if we want to help our community, the funding's usually the limit, right? So, yeah.
You know, the only other thing that I think about is that we can provide parks and opportunities to walk to school, but we need the parental assistance in getting kids out from behind their computers and out playing and doing the things that we know are healthy. So is there an educational component to this? I know that's not really why you're here tonight, but it seems like that's critical to
Under
any
Safe
success.
Routes to School, there's quite a few different components, and it's whether or not the resources can be there. The current steps of Safe Routes to School in particular is to start getting neighborhood watch campaigns involved, and that's another way to bring the parent involvement in because there hasn't been too much parent participation regarding the PTAs. So this is one component. Strategies are always welcome about how to bring people together, and there's a lot of other community events that we might be able to start bringing more people together regarding that, but that's definitely a barrier. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you for appearing tonight. Before we accept a motion for approval of the resolution, is there any public comment on the health and all properties?
Actually, there's no resolution.
It's not a resolution.
There's no resolution on it. It was a recommendation.
Recommendation, okay.
That Ms. Yandel was recommending to the council. If
All right.
the council wishes us to pursue that, we can bring that back.
So we can direct you to bring it back?
Absolutely.
Is there any public comment on the health and all policies? Okay, seeing none, is there direction from council?
Sure.
Okay, we have consensus to bring that back to us then, in the form of a resolution, I take it. Thank you. Next item is public comment, and this is the public comment period where any member of the audience is invited to address the City Council on any matter that's within the jurisdiction of the City of Crescent City. Comments of public interest or on matters appearing on the agenda are accepted. However, note that the council is not able to undertake extended discussion or act on non-agendized items. Such items can be referred to staff for appropriate action, which may include placement on a future agenda. Any comments that are not made at the microphone are not in order and will not be part of the public record. And after receiving recognition from the mayor, please state your name and whether you're a city or county resident for our records. And public comment is limited to 3 minutes. Is there any public comment at this time? Yes.
Good evening, everyone. It's been a while since I've been able to make it down here. If you'll allow me, I'd like to talk dirty for a few minutes.
Could we have your name, please?
Michael Haver, and I'm a city resident. I live across the street from Beachfront Park.
Okay.
I spoke to Mr. Palazzo today, and I talked to Eric and a lot of other people. Beachfront Park is starting to look like a landfill. Your trash cans don't work. You need more of them or larger ones. They dump them on Friday morning. By Friday afternoon, the birds are already taking the trash out and spreading it all over the park. Restrooms, another issue at the park. The schedule is so varied on the weekends. Your tourist dollars are going to the Chevron station, down the drain, and down the highway because the restrooms aren't open. Closest place, they don't even buy gas, they leave town. I've followed them there. Another thing is, and this is not a drag on, where'd he go, Doug? We have an extreme lack of enforcement in the park, and that's due to short staffing. That's not Doug's fault. It's not the sheriff's department's fault. That park runs 24 hours a day. I'm talking vandalism, dogs in the playground, people pooping on the playground equipment, drugs, I sit in my living room window, look out the window, and see the hash pipes and the crack pipes being lit up across the street from my house. And like I said, that's short staffing. If there's a way that we can increase enforcement, do everybody in the area a favor. And my dear friend here, who's getting tired of listening to me, I try to set up some hard dates for public hearings on a dog park, because I've got a base mobilized at this point, and if we start now, we can secure funding to build the park and keep the people involved in design and construction down to the volunteer level. I already have people. So I will try to work with Eric on that at all occasions, and he knows how to get a hold of me. So, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I too did notice the trash this weekend, and we were working on ways that we can maybe have an additional pickup during the weekend for that. And thank you for the dog park, because that's one of my main issues about getting that. Any other public comment at this time? All right, seeing none, close public comment, and we'll move on to item number, actually it's item number 5, and that's to adjourn temporarily to the Crescent City successor agency to the redevelopment agency. So we will go over to that, and I'll open that meeting. Would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Board Member Gastineau?
Here.
Board Member Shalom?
Here.
Board Member Murray?
Here.
Vice Chair Holly?
Here.
And Chairman Ania.
I'm here, thank you. Is there any public comment on the successor agency to the redevelopment agency? All right, seeing none, we'll go to the consent calendar. We have one item to approve the regular meeting minutes of September 16th.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and approved to a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. There is no director's report. There are no business items. Public hearing. There's a public hearing, and this is to consider and approve a resolution entitled Resolution Number 2013-28, a resolution of the successor agency to the dissolved redevelopment agency of the City of Crescent City, approving the long-range property management plan prepared by the successor agency pursuant to Health and Safety Code Section 34191.5, determining that approval of the long-range property management plan is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act and taking certain actions as necessary and appropriate. Mr. Palazzo.
Yeah, Chair Nia, members of the board, good evening. Gene Palazzo. The staff report and property management plan before you is part of the dissolution of our redevelopment agency and is required by state law. And in kind of a quick synopsis of this, any agency that had property retained upon that dissolution needs to prepare a property management plan, bring it to the successor agency, which is this board here. Then I need to submit that to the Department of Finance, which would be the resolution if approved this evening. Then this plan goes to the Oversight Board and gets reviewed and approved by the Oversight Board. Then I take that and then I submit that to the Department of Finance, for their approval. And we probably wait, several months to get their final approval on this plan. What this plan is to address and identify the properties that the agency has retained through this dissolution and what is going to happen to these properties. State law, and there's a couple amendments after the process, the law was adopted. There's some amendments to that law to address some specifics. In particular, it would be the properties that are retained for government use. In our property management plan, we have 3 properties that are used by government use, and there are 2 vacant lots. So what the process is upon approval, these properties go into what the I guess state law has deemed the trust fund, and the best way to describe it is it's a magical bucket here in the sky that these properties go into, that they're going to sit until something happens with these properties. State law says once you go through the process, the properties that are retained for government purposes can then be
How is that defined, Gene? local government or?
It's government purposes, and ours is specifically local government. It's our city hall, our police department, and our housing authority. So they fall within the state law. Once we get all the approvals through the Department of Finance, then we can take those properties and deed those properties back to the city. And that's a process where I'll have to come to the successor agency, then I'll have to go to the oversight board to have that approved, and then we can have those deeds and assign those properties to be in the city ownership.
Good.
Right now, they're owned by the redevelopment agency, which does not technically, I guess, exist at this time. And again, has not been a lot of property management plans submitted or even approved. When I was reviewing this plan with our redevelopment attorneys and they're making comments, we just got some additional feedback from the Department of Finance on another city. Let's, take a look at your plan and add that so we're consistent with what the Department of Finance is looking at. So they're even evaluating and shifting on their review and approvals as this goes through the process. So our property management plan is submitted, and what the management plan addresses is these properties, what the intent of these properties, where they will go. As I said, there's 3 properties that are used for government purposes. I outline in the plan, the address, the parcel number, current description, best of our knowledge when we acquired these properties and for what the cost was, history of environmental contamination, kind of on down the line. The 2 properties that are vacant, the properties on item number 4 and 5 of the property management plan. One is property that fronts I Street. It's right on the walkway of, I guess that's 2nd Street, 2nd Street right away, and right behind the library. That property, as far as I can tell, has been, we acquired that back in the late 60s as part of the whole Tsunami Plaza area. It's been sitting vacant since then. The steps after we get, the city properties transferred, what I'll do is I'll bring back to this board, for some recommendations and direction on, what to do with that property, and that'll definitely have to go back to the oversight board. We did a analysis on that property on potential value, and I included that into the report. I had a letter of opinion of value done back in April 16th of 2012 when we started dissolving the agency, just to kind of find out what these property values would be. The other site is Site 5, and that site is a very small sliver of property next to the K-Pod building, is the best way to describe it. It has an access pathway to the public parking lot, and then also it actually connects 2 public parking lots, which is a vacant property. So staff recommendation on that is to put that into the trust. Let's go through this process, get the DOF to approve our property management plan, have the city public building properties deeded back to the city, and then come back and address how we can best utilize these 2 vacant lots. Again, they've been sitting vacant for many years. I think we can address that at a later date. So with tonight's action, approve long-range property management plan, make a finding that the property is not a project pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, and direct staff to transmit the LRM to the Oversight Board and to the Department of Finance.
Okay, thank you. Is there any comments for council?
Quick question.
Yes.
The trust, again, belongs to who?
They just termed it as a trust fund. It's just more than...
So a trust fund for the city of Crescent City?
I believe, let me, and when I was talking to our attorneys, we pretty much just described it as, it's just labeled that. It's not really a trust fund. It's just labeled that these properties are sitting in, they're going to be sitting there. It's not a physical or actual location. It's just what the state law has named where these properties would be placed.
it's
very, and again.
I don't want to get in a situation where the trust becomes property of the state of California.
It is not. It is not. That
Okay.
wasn't their intent.
Gene, are these the only properties that are owned in this manner?
Correct.
From the
The
okay,
only
we don't have
properties
any.
that are owned by the redevelopment agency.
Okay, thank you.
And we have
City
the
of
RDA
Crystal.
Oversight
Good.
Committee meeting on the 30th.
Pardon?
We have the Oversight Committee meeting on the 30th.
Okay.
If anybody wants to attend.
Councilmember Shalom, do you have another comment? No. Okay.
It sounds like, though, it won't go to the Oversight Committee until it goes to Finance.
Well, I submit the action tonight to the Department of Finance. They'll receive that, and then I move forward with the Oversight Board and get their action, and I submit that to the Department of Finance, and Department of Finance will have both actions, and then they'll take a look at our plan.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is there any public comment before we take further action on this trust fund? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back up front. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 2013-28, a resolution of the successor agency to the dissolved redevelopment agency of the City of Crescent City approving the long-range property management plan prepared by the successor agency pursuant to Health and Safety Code Section 3419.5, determining that approval of the long-range property management plan is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act and taking certain actions in connection therewith.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Would you pull the vote, please?
Yes, sir. Board Member Murray?
Yes.
Board Member Gastineau?
Yes.
Board Member Shalom?
Yes.
Vice Chair Holly?
Yes.
And Chairman Nania?
Yes, thank you. Next is public hearings, and we do have one. We're going to conduct a public hearing for the final grantee performance report and close out for the Community Development Grant, also called CDBG. And this is 10-STBG 6708, the grant contract, and take action as necessary and appropriate. Mr. Palazzo.
Yeah, Mayor and members of the council. We spent a lot of time at the last meeting discussing our CDBG projects. I'm going to be very brief. This is the public hearing and closeout for the 10 STBG. It's to accept the grantee performance report and direct staff to complete that closeout. The grant dates back to 2010, and it was for Rural Human Services, Harrington House Food Bank, CASA, and some public services which went to the municipal pool. Tonight, it's just, hold the public hearing, see if there's any public comment, and then take council direction.
Do I need to abstain from this?
Before he came on to our council, I would think he would not have to abstain. He's an employee of RHS. It's the same with me. I sit on the board of RHS, and this is before I came on the council. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Unless council has any questions?
No? I was wondering if Susan was going to say anything. No? Okay. It's a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing. Is there any comments on our closeout of our CDBG grants? Seeing none, I'll bring it back up to the board. Do you have a comment? Any?
I'll move to approve the final grantee performance report for CDBG 10 STBG 6708.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Would you pull the vote?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Gastineau?
Yes.
Councilmember Shalom?
Yes.
Councilmember Murray?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Holly?
Yes.
And Mayor Nania?
Yes, thank you. Item number 8 is, item number 7. Thank you. Item number 7 is to review and approve the General Fund 2012-13 year-end financial results and the 2013-14 budget update and consideration of a general fund reserve policy and take action as necessary.
Yeah, Mayor and I'd like to introduce Susan Mayer to present this item.
Thank you.
As she's getting ready, just, this is good news story. on our general fund and just focused on our general fund this evening with the end of the year closeout. So I'll turn it over to Susan.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Susan Mayer. I'm the interim finance director. I have a budget update for you tonight. This is October, and October is when we start to have year-end results for you. Our external audit will be starting next week, and so although these are preliminary pre-audit numbers, we have a series of good news to present to you. In addition to presenting 12-13 preliminary results, we also have some updated information for 13-14, and it's actually fairly soon in the year to be proposing changes for you for 13-14, but we do have some good news in terms of a number of large grants that the city has been awarded that we'd like you to appropriate so that the staff has the spending authority to implement those programs. Our objectives tonight are to go through these year-end results for the general fund. Because we have some good news, we'd like to revisit and have you discuss and consider a general fund reserve policy. This was a topic that you discussed in your budget workshop, and because you have some good news at year-end, this is a great opportunity for you to come back and revisit that. We have a formal policy in front of you to consider and adopt. In addition, because we had, again, we had some good news, we have a series of one-time uses for some specific projects that we're recommending that were identified in the strategic plan and also in the capital improvement plan that we're recommending that you appropriate and take action on. With respect to the 13-14 budget, we are asking you to look at the revenues, and we have a series of adjustments to the operating budget, but the net result of those of amendments will be to maintain a balanced general fund budget for 13-14. So let's start out with the good news here, revenues. The city's general fund earned $4.7 million in revenues for the year, and I'd just like to highlight some of the large sources that we have here: property tax, sales tax, and transient occupancy tax, which is the hotel tax. And each of these had good results for the year, including some one-time results. And I would like to say that of the $4.7 million we received, $200,000 of that was one-time and catch-up monies, which are good to adding to our fund balance, but in some cases they don't continue. However, with respect to a variance from budget, we had almost $300,000 favorable variance to budget. In particular, we had some one-time news with respect to property taxes. With the redevelopment dissolution, we had a one-time flow of money back from the redevelopment agency to the county. The county distributed it to all the taxing agencies, including the city. And so the city's general fund had a one-time pickup from the RDA dissolution. In addition, we had good news on the sales tax front. That for year-to-year comparables, we had a 7% growth, and isn't that great news that shows some real uptick in our economy. Transient occupancy tax had a 10% growth for the year, and partially reflects the new hotel that opened up on the Highway 101 corridor, although there were nice increases for a number of the hotels in the area. And so in total, we had some strong good news. Now, when the budget was presented to you in June, this information was not available because we need to have budget monitoring during the year so that we don't have year-to-year surprises, end-of-year surprises like this. However, I thought it was unusual here in Crescent City, over $700,000 of your revenues were not receipted until July, August, and September. Because the sales tax is advanced to the city 2 months in arrears, and because your hotels are paying you on a quarterly basis after the end of the year, and because we also received a number of catch-up payments from the county that didn't come in until July and August, this truly is good news that was not available at the time the budget was adopted. And so I think it's appropriate that the city always budget conservatively for revenues. You don't want to ever miss that target because you're writing checks against it during the year. But in this case, you happen to have some good news that came in after the end of the year. So here we have the revenue, good news. We had good news on the expenditure side, and it just so happened that, every year there are budget fluctuations, but this year both the revenues and the expenditures both had positive results. We had over $300,000 of expenditure savings for the year, and again, this is a fairly significant amount. We spent $4.3 million, but this was $300,000 favorable to budget. This chart shows you how that breaks down. 120 was on the salary and benefit line, and this was due to some vacancies across many departments, but particularly in the police department. In addition, we had over 200,000 in savings from vendors, from the accounts payable side of the business. And what drove these? We had a large project for the revetment at Elk Creek that was deferred and rebudgeted in the 13-14 year. Our Public Works Department was assisted in renegotiating the propane costs at the community pool. We saved over $30,000 there. There's some equipment deferrals in the fire department. There were some other overall savings, but in total, these added up to a significant sum, $200,000. And so City Council is sitting in a situation where we had almost $300,000 of revenue savings and $300,000 of expenditure savings. And so because of that, we'd like to have you think back to the strategic plan that you've discussed and some of the other projects that you considered during the budget workshop. And I have to tell you, coming in and looking at these and starting to make a list of options for your consideration is very helpful because you've already laid the foundation for this in adopting your strategic plan and adopting a capital improvement plan, because those plans identify one-time uses of money and objectives that you have already discussed. And so the items that we have in front of you, I think are items that you have already discussed publicly and sought input from, and now we're making a recommendation that you actually fund some of these objectives. I'd like to first start out with a reserve policy. And in your strategic plan, you identify as one of your important objectives is the fiscal stability of the city. And the city's general fund reserve has plummeted in the last few years as the city went through some fairly significant economic downturn. And there were a number of very, very difficult budget years where very tough choices have been made. But at this point, we believe that your fund balance reserve is really fairly low given the economics of this community. At June of 2012, you had a $950,000 reserve, which was 21% of total 13-14 expenditures. If the City Council were to consider a policy that grew this to 25%, by investing 1% a year, we would make a recommendation that you invest $50,000 to increase that reserve by up to 22% and continue that fiscal discipline to continue that going forward. As we consider an appropriate reserve policy, and there is a policy presented as attachment A to your report, we look at a couple different things. We look at the diversification of your revenue base. We look at how sensitive it is to certain business cycles. In this case, obviously, we're very dependent on the tourism and the inflow of visitors to support our hotels, our restaurants, and our gas stations. Those are the primary drivers of our sales tax, transient occupancy tax and sales tax. But probably more important than this is the susceptibility to physical and natural disaster. Because it's a coastal community, because you are susceptible to the physical dramas of the storms, the flooding, and other impacts, natural impacts. 25% reserve does not really give you as much protection as you might want to consider on a long-term basis. The other issue you have is the risk of the transit corridors coming into town, because you're very reliant on really two main traffic corridors coming into town, and they have their own challenges in terms of the stability of those roadways, and they're susceptible to the bridge failures and other issues with the weather issues. And so we recommend this fund balance policy. Now I want to make reference to a comment I made before. Remember when I said that $700,000 of your revenues came in after the end of the year? So when you look at a reserve policy of, say, for example, $1 million, remember that the first $700,000 of that is really just funding your cash flow, because you're writing your checks to employees and vendors as you go through the year, but those revenues aren't coming into 2 to 3 months after the fact. And so, although from an economic point of view you might target 25%, remember that the first $700,000 is really a working capital cash flow operating reserve. If the council choose to invest in 1% in their economic reserve, there would be additional surplus of one-time monies to invest in one-time projects. And there is a list in front of you here that comprises about three to 400,000 of one-time projects. These are all projects that the City Council has considered before. The most important and largest is the fire hall remodel. This is a seismic project. This would be the local match for a grant that has recently been awarded to the city. It provides for the seismic retrofit of the fire hall in the city. The other smaller projects that are listed here include really improvements to various city facilities, including City Hall access and efficiency improvements. There's a desire to make a one-stop public counter access to City Hall. There is listed here an additional investment in your code enforcement and abatement revolving fund. This is a fund that you started a year ago with some seed money, and that money has been invested and continues to be invested in removing blight in the area by addressing various properties with the intent, long-term objective, to lien those properties and recover the money so they can be reinvested in additional code efforts. This proposal would add additional money to that seed money that's in your code enforcement fund. Another item that is listed here is some right-of-way cleanup, and there are a number of city right-of-ways that are in need of some cleanup enforcement actions. And so this would propose a nominal sum to facilitate that cleanup. The signal replacement is really a second phase, and it addresses some accessibility objectives, including the countdown and the bird chirping and some other items that are the state code is phasing in. And so these would make improvements to the signal on Highway 101. Finally, there are two items here for police vehicles and fire vehicle contributions. These are items that were cut in the budget this year, and these represent the second of a two-year funding cycle for these vehicles. And so there you have a list of $386,000. These are one-time monies that we recommend for one-time projects. The net results, and I presented this information in two manners. I have a chart here, but then I also have a graph. The chart explains that although we had a $600,000 surplus, I need to remind you that the budget for the year was actually not balanced and had a deficit of $161. And so the combination of removing that deficit, plus funding the reserve, plus funding the transfers, will allow us to end the year with $1 million reserve, which represents 22% of our expenditures and represents a 1% progress in achieving a goal of 25%. I'd also like to show the same thing graphically. And I have to tell you, when I saw this chart, this is a fund balance chart, and it shows you that a few years ago, the city was fortunate to have $2.4 million in their general fund reserve. And I have to tell you, this chart looks like just so many other cities, because all California's cities were dealing with the same dramatic revenue drops, the property tax loss, the sales tax loss. And if you were to switch out the name Crescent City with many other cities, the chart would look very much the same. So the good news is that although we've eroded the fund balance, the decline has stabilized. There was good fiscal discipline in your budget, good savings by the departments, and now we're starting to see an uptick in putting money back, investing in our reserve to protect against the future. Let's move forward to 1314. Our adopted budget for the year was $4.5 million. And as I indicated before, it's really fairly soon in the year to start to make recommendations. Normally you would do a mid-year update in January or February when you had 6 months of actuals to rely on. Here we really don't have a lot of new information. However, we do have some information on a couple of key revenue sources. I did talk with the county. The county assessor has completed the tax roll for the year, and those numbers are now locked in. The assessed valuation for the year was almost flat with the prior year, just a notch down. But the news that we do have on property tax is that we have the definite in lieu. The city receives two types of property tax, the tax based on the assessed valuation, and then also the in lieu portion that replaces what we used to call motor vehicle license fee. So there's two components. The DOF has locked in the VLF in lieu for the year, and so that's a fixed amount. And so we're recommending that you make that adjustment at this time. The sales tax also comes to you in two pieces. There's the 75% that comes from the Board of Equalization, and there's 25% that also comes as an in lieu number that's set by the Department of Finance. That number has been locked in for the year. So we're making recommendations on sales tax to bring up your base for the 75% to equal last year, plus also to adjust for the new information that we have on the in-lieu, which is locked in for the year. We also have made other updates, including the transient occupancy, to update to match the baseline from the prior year. The last item I'll discuss, which is the last item listed here, is the department fees and charges. We have a one-time pickup from the gas tax fund. Gas tax comes to the city on a monthly basis and comes into a fund that's dedicated for those revenues. The general fund budgets a reimbursement from that fund at a fixed amount, but the revenues are variable. We've been in a situation where that fund balance has accumulated. We have $135,000 in that fund. We're recommending that the city move $100,000 and put that money to use in the general fund while still leaving a $35,000 reserve in the gas tax fund to protect against future fluctuations in that particular revenue source. So in total, we're making recommendations to update the revenue base by $252,000, of which the $100,000 is just a one-time gas tax number. We're making these recommendations now so that you don't have the same year-end surprise that you had last year. We're trying to make adjustments and make recommendations to you as we go so that you have a handle on where your general fund stands. We have a series of program appropriations to recommend, and these really, the first 5 here represents money, third-party monies and reimbursements we have received, either for grants, insurance reimbursements, or developer reimbursements. In each case, we're asking for the City Council to give the staff the expenditure authority to accept and implement the grant programs. This is the FEMA grant for the fire hall seismic retrofit, the RV park reconstruction grant. The Elk Creek revetment project was in addition to the grant that had already been accepted and appropriated. We had an unexpected insurance reimbursement and a developer reimbursement. Those are all additions to the budgets. We are, however, making 2 other expenditure recommendations. We are beginning to implement some budget monitoring techniques, and now we have a system where every pay period we track to see exactly how we're doing with our year-to-date payroll budget. And our report to you after the first 7 pay periods of the year is that the general fund is on track to save, well, it has saved $55,000 in the first quarter of the year. Again, this is primarily due to some positions that have been vacant. And so we're recommending that you recognize that vacancy and put the money to use. In addition, there's a small operating adjustment in the Public Works Department. So in total, we're recommending $1.6 million in adjustments. However, the general fund expenditure budget is actually being reduced. And the other funds are being increased for the capital projects discussed above. We're making some technical recommendations on your cost allocation plan. The city has a very comprehensive cost allocation strategy. It's well documented, it's very transparent, it's printed in the budget book. During your city council budget workshop this spring, the city council asked staff to go back and take a look at this. Over time, the cost allocation has grown significantly, and in the past year some additional layers were added onto it. And so coming in as the interim director, I was asked to take a fresh look at the cost plan and to make recommendations. And I think that my recommendation to you reflects the current operating status of the city. The general fund budget is growing again. You've just seen recommendations to increase your revenue budget. In addition, there are some other funds in the city that are experiencing declines and having some deficit challenges. So overall, we're making some technical adjustments to recommend that the cost plan be adjusted to probably steer more closely in line with your current operations going forward. So as a result, we're recommending decreases in the public works allocations and also in the administration allocations. And when I say administration, I'm referring to the city hall functions for the manager, the finance, and the clerk's departments. And in addition, we're also making some other recommendations that actually have some savings in some of the general fund departments. The net impact of these changes is $300,000. I think that cost plans are a good business practice. They accomplish an objective of trying to measure the cost of providing services in all your funds and programs. I think the city has a very comprehensive approach to cost allocation, and I think that in particular it takes advantage of being very transparent on the cost of our different programs. And so this is our recommendation tonight to implement these changes to your cost plan. The combination of these changes here shows that we are recommending a 13-14 expenditure budget of $4.4 million in revenues, $4.4 million in expenditures. The net results of all the actions I've just discussed with you is still a break-even budget for 13-14 and shows that we are maintaining the $1 million in 22% fund balance reserve. We have one last item to talk about with you, and that is construction management. As I mentioned, we are on the incredibly fortunate position of having 3 very large grants with 3 multi-million-dollar construction projects, and this includes the CDBG 12th 2nd Street Sewer Project, the RV Park Reconstruction Project, and then finally the new fire hall remodel that's just recently come onto the books. We have been relying on a retiree, Mike Young, to provide our construction management services for us. We're at this situation now where Mike actually wants to retire, and he's advised the city that he will be...
Again.
We'd like to conclude his work with the city. We have been very fortunate for him to have his expertise. We are proposing to you an in-house construction management position to continue that function. And as the finance person, I will tell you that these large projects put risk to the city. We've got these grants. Now we need to deliver on them. We need to make sure we are following our grant compliance requirements in terms of the bidding, the contracting, the monitoring. We need to make sure that the costs are controlled, the progress is controlled, that they are delivered on time. And in protecting the city's cash flow, we need to be sure that we're on top of the cash flows, the payments to these vendors. We need to be sure that we are getting reimbursed on a timely basis. $3 million, that's as much money as we have in the entire treasury. So it's important, it's in the city's best interest to have active construction management when dealing with the scope of the projects that we have in front of us today. So we're recommending that we have some in-house construction management. The actions before you tonight are to adopt a reserve policy, to approve 12-13 year-end project transfers, to approve the proposed 13-14 budget amendment, and finally to authorize a project management position within the Public Works Department. And that's my presentation. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Susan. Any council comments?
Yes.
Yes.
Several months back, I brought it to staff's attention that we already had a 25% policy in place for reserves from back in like 2007-ish. And I believe you were going to look into that. I don't see a reason for us to adopt another policy on top of one that may still exist on the book. So were you able to find that?
We have not found that as as far as I know, that's been a verbal policy. It hasn't been anything written.
I believe that we adopted a resolution. That's why I think he was going to have Robin check it out, but I don't know. Is there a problem with adopting another one on top of a policy that exists, or I guess not, probably.
This would just replace anything that's in existence.
Okay.
Our goal could still be 25% though.
Council member, if I could just reinforce that, one of the recommendations that I discussed with the city manager is printing that policy in the budget book each year, so that as the council turns over and as the staff turns over, it's
there.
It's a good reminder, and so that would be a recommendation for next year.
That's a good idea. On the gas tax, is there any restrictions on how that money is used instead of just putting it into the general fund?
Yes, it must be spent on items that are defined by the state street and highways code. The city does have $100,000 of expenditures greater than we have been reimbursed by the gas tax fund, so this would maximize the eligible reimbursement. The general fund has a streets program. We incur money. During the past fiscal year, the general fund taxes supplemented the gas tax money by $100,000. So this would make for 13-14, we would be getting a gas tax reimbursement for 100% of our street costs.
Okay, so that money wouldn't actually be put towards any of these projects that we are about to possibly approve?
No, it must be
Okay.
spent on street projects.
Okay, thank you. On construction management, Are you looking to go out and hire somebody
Yes.
or promote from within?
It'd be a recruitment process.
Okay.
to see.
And I don't know about how anyone else feels, but I would strongly recommend that we possibly combine the position of account analyst so that we have somebody, that's a position we've already approved that has been vacant. And so it'd be really great if we could have somebody on staff that is an accountant level, but also project management, construction management.
Yeah, I'd be looking at two separate positions, and Ms. Mayor and I have, talked about that, and when our new finance director comes on board, we'll be moving forward with the finance position, and that's already in the budget. This would be, a different position for just construction, project management in the Public Works Department.
So you
So
couldn't combine the two?
I wouldn't recommend it. They're two different functions that we're looking to achieve in those positions.
Okay. They seem to have a lot of similarities to me, but,
Well, there's going to be a lot of, they're going to work together, absolutely, on these projects, but, the finance, there's a lot of other items that we need to take a look at within our finance department that analyst or person would be doing.
okay. And before we talk about the individual projects, I wanted to just thank you because having this kind of good news in October and actually presented to the council in such a constructive way is it's very helpful as a council person to have this kind of information along the way. And I think that it's a very good way for us to start a new practice. And so that we, I feel like I've been on this council for a long time, and as we move forward and we grow up and we, have all of these things come and go at us, projects that, and rate increases that a lot of times, we're learning as we go. And so having strategic information on an accountant level is really helpful as we decide to make these big decisions. So I want to say thank you. I was the one that asked for this cost allocation to be looked at, and because I was, I have the benefit of seeing this budget for over 7 years now, and so I thought it was really important, and I think that you did an outstanding job. And the fact that we were able to come in at the end of our year with positive news to, kind of balance the scales doesn't always happen. And we are used to seeing our revenues from the state coming in, post-quarterly, but usually we don't have the positive news to balance it out. And, with the decline in the revenues that we've received in the past, it wasn't always a pretty picture. So I feel really good about this today, and I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you. Is there any other council comments at this time?
Just a question, I think, and I too, actually, I want to make a comment. I too appreciate this. The good news is that it's very good news. If we do it again and it's bad news, we will have caught it early enough along in the year to make some adjustments. And so I think this is, hopefully we can continue to do this year after year. One question though, when we deal with the budget amendments, I noticed that the construction project management position is not a part of any change in expenditures. Is that because it's a targeted net zero impact? We're hoping to get the manager's money back from the respective grants? Is that why?
Exactly correct. The grants, the costs for the manager would be grant eligible, so they would be charged out to the projects on a timesheet basis. The position would live within the general fund, but would be charged out to the project, and so there's no budget impact.
Okay, and the only other thing I would ask about that position, Jean, is what happens? I know hopefully we'll continue to receive grants and construction kind of activities. What happens if those don't come through? Do we locate this person to our area and then we rethink what they're doing, or what is the plan long term?
Long term, we have a list of grants, that, we're pursuing. This position is going to have to be built out to that construction, those construction projects. At this time, there is no other way we can, address this type of position.
That's a very good point, and so I would think that it would be really important that as you recruit, that you, in the recruitment, are very clear about this being a grant-funded position, and it could last 3 years, hopefully. And I would have a hard time understanding anybody that might move for a grant-funded position, but
But we have beachfront and Front Street master plan redesigns that will
And-
require
and
that.
When we do all these projects, we need to come to the city council with a plan, a budget on how these projects are going to be implemented. And in that budget, we need to include staff time on how those projects are going to be managed.
and are we going to contract this position and not pay benefits? Or, because the benefits can't be cost allocated to the grant, I would assume, maybe I'm wrong.
Each grant's a little bit different. Some of them, I'll just say that each grant has a little bit different rules on that.
But we have a commitment toward eliminating blight, and I could see a situation where there's a transition if we run out of grant work, that maybe we would make the decision that that would be a priority, because this person will come in with that skill set on how to deal with some of those blight issues.
And so I wanted to thank the staff too. Getting $3 million in grants is huge, and I believe that the fire hall retrofit is the only one that required a matching fund. Is that correct? So this good news is really helpful for the fire hall retrofit.
I think the
which is
RV
really important.
The RV project required a matching grant, but we are able to do that with the existing funds in that enterprise fund.
That's correct.
Okay, well, that's what I asked. So anyway, I just think that that's really significant to point out.
Any other comments? Thank you very much. It was an excellent presentation. Is there any public comment before we go any further? Seeing none, we'll move on then to council on the fund transfers. Is there any comments?
Are we going to take them line by line, or?
Yes, let's do it line by line. See if
Okay,
there's
well, first, I will make a motion to adopt a general fund reserve policy of 25% of the City of Crescent City's, what'd you call it, the fund balance?
Attachment A, is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Would you pull the vote?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Murray?
Yes.
Councilmember Shalong?
Yes.
Councilmember Gastineau?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Holly?
Yes.
And Mayor Inia.
Yes. Item number 2 is to approve the 2012-13 year-end transfers and projects appropriations as outlined in the staff report.
I would move to approve the 2012-13 year-end transfers and project appropriations as outlined by staff.
Is that the one with the projects? Okay, I would like to actually discuss that.
Sure,
So I'll,
okay.
I'll second that, but I would like to discuss it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion?
If you look at the list, which I believe is on page
5.
5, correct. So, there's $386,000 in projects. And I just wanted to bring this up, and I'm not a huge proponent of what I'm saying, but I was curious about the City Hall access and efficiency improvements. I know that it's important. Is it really a $45,000 project? Do we have an estimate? Because I would really like to see this council consider putting more than $50,000 into our reserves.
That is the best estimate that I have at this time. That project is, I've been talking about it for over a year now. We've targeted trying to get CDBG funding, to address that. To have CDBG fund the project for city halls is impossible. It's not,
Right.
It's not going to happen. So, at this point, it's what we're asking the council to do is to use the general fund.
No, I
dollars.
understand the project. I'm
So-
just
so
curious
you-
if it's actually a $45,000 project.
Yes.
And are we going to use in-house?
No, it would be probably, the construction of that project would probably be out to bid.
Okay.
But if we do have leftover money, we could consider putting it more into the reserves.
Yeah,
on
I
this
don't,
project?
I don't expect that,
Okay.
Mayor.
That's a good thought. Did you have another comment?
No, that was the only one on the list that I was questioning.
Okay. Any other comments on that before we vote on those 7 projects? If not, would you pull the vote?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Gastineau?
Yes.
Councilmember Shalong?
Yes.
Councilmember Murray?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Holly?
Yes.
And Mayor Ania.
Yes. Thank you for that. Those projects are going to go a long way in our communities, especially the fire hall. That has been planned for a long, long time, and it's finally becoming a reality.
Can I ask a quick question about that? Will there be any public input on that project?
Next item on the agenda, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. The fourth item is, the third item is to approve the 2013-14 budget amendments as outlined in the staff report.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion on that item? If not, would you pull the vote?
Councilmember Shalong?
Yes.
Councilmember Gastineau?
Yes.
Councilmember Murray?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Holly?
Yes.
And Mayor Ania.
Yes, and the last item is the staffing authorization for Public Works project management position.
Can you tell us a little more about that? What is that process going to look like? Are you going to come back to us with a job description and a budget amount, or?
We will have to, redo a project description for project manager. Right now, it's allocating, the position, and I need to work with our Public Works Director, on the specifics of tasks for that, position. I think the intent is, to take a look and see if we either, we have 2 options, either, full-time in-house staff or contracting, that position out. We have to evaluate, the quality and who we can get to, help us out. All these projects, there's variances in each one of them. The projects need to pay for the project manager, position.
Right, and normally with a grant, you have to expend the funds before you can be reimbursed. So what budget line item are we going to take this money out of in transition before we get reimbursed?
Well, all grants are done on a reimbursement basis, and we have the authority to write the checks. And so the city's treasury floats the cost until there's a reimbursement, but we recognize the revenue at the same time as the expenditure, so there's no impact on the fund balance, just on our cash flow. It is a significant investment of cash flow to the city to fund these grants.
So the cash flow comes out of whatever, if they're working on the sewer project, it's going to come out of the sewer?
It'll come out of the sewer fund or sewer project, depending on how that project is allocated to address staff time. And right now, the sewer project, all the CDBG money is going into the project, and we've allocated staff time to come out of the sewer, fund itself. Fire hall grant is, I forget how the
The
fire
city
hall-
has a capital project fund where these projects will be seated, and that's where the 13-14 appropriation will be sitting in the capital projects fund. And so as time is allocated on a timesheet, those costs are charged to the project in that fund.
Right.
Whether or not it's the RV park project or the fire hall project.
Right.
Or the sewer project, time cards would charge the time to those different project budgets.
Right, I understand. I was just concerned about the cash flow and where that might come from on an interim basis. So that if you're completely comfortable with it, then I am.
You're right on track, because it's the same challenge for the checks we write the contractor, right? In fact, the staff is a small portion of the cash flow the city will be absorbing while the constructions are under project. Construction management's a small percentage compared to the checks that we have to write to the contractor. It all has to be billed and reimbursed on a timely basis.
Any other council comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve the staffing authorization for the Public Works project management position.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Would you pull that vote, please?
Councilmember Murray?
Yes.
Councilmember Gastineau?
Yes.
Councilmember Shalong?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Holly?
Yes.
And Mayor Ania.
Yes. Item number 8 on our agenda is to consider and approve Resolution 2013-27, A resolution of the City Council for Crescent City designating the city manager as the authorizing agent for the hazardous mitigation grant program for the fire hall seismic retrofit project. Mr. Taylor?
So I've prepared a short PowerPoint presentation. It's been a while since this project's come before the council, so I'm just going to go over the history of this and how we are where we are at today. Everybody knows the city fire hall is located at 520 I Street. It's kind of centrally located in our city. It's obviously a very vital facility for our community. I'll just give you a little background, some statistics. The fire hall was constructed in 1957. That was the original structure. About 669 square feet in size. In the 2000, 885 square foot addition was added. That was the new equipment bay. Right now the fire hall consists of one two-story structure that kind of has the downstairs meeting and kitchen facilities. Above that there's some rooms for the firefighters, some equipment storage and changing facilities and that type of thing. The main portion of the fire hall is has an extended roof. It's the engine room, so that's where they have the 4 bay doors out front there. And then you have a 32 foot tall hose tower. So a little bit of history on the grant, how we got there. In 2011, we completed our hazard mitigation plan. We actually got a grant for that project. Once we had that in place, and that plan identified some different natural hazards and facilities that would be at risk, and obviously the fire hall and the seismic event were top priorities on that plan. After we adopted that plan, that made us eligible to apply for some of these FEMA grants, and they came available. So timing was pretty good for us. In 2011, we adopted the plan, and in 2011, we had the tsunami that hit Crescent City. So when that natural disaster happened, and especially for the affected counties, we kind of get a little higher priority for some of this funding. So we were able, they made the announcement that funding was going to be available due to that event. And so in 2012, we applied for the hazard mitigation grant. That was for the seismic retrofit of the fire hall. We received word that we were going to be funded. We were actually invited, at that point we were invited to submit an application, and then our project was approved about 6 months after that time. So here we are in 2013. We just received the award letter. We're kind of waiting on some of the, because these are FEMA monies, they're NEPA, National Environmental Policy Act applies, so we're waiting for a lot of that to be dealt with. So that was taken care of. FEMA awarded the funding to us in the amount of $686,966. So a little background on the project itself. This is actually taken from the 1994 Northridge quake that happened in Southern California. And I actually wanted to get some photographs of the fire hall. It was number 70 down there that was damaged, but I couldn't find any, so I kind of threw this in. This could be any typical house in Crescent City. We have a lot of aged facilities, older structures that don't meet current seismic standards, and that's kind of where we're at with the fire hall that was constructed in 1957. And I put this in here, and this is the action report from the 1994 event in Los Angeles. And if you'll note, just in this action report, and this is for Fire Station 70, they were actually in Northridge when the quake occurred. But the front apparatus doors jammed in the closed position. So what happened, their facility was damaged during the quake, and they were unable to open the bay doors. Not only could they not get their equipment out, they couldn't even get their personnel out. They were stuck in the building. They have 24-hour manned facilities down there, so they're asleep at the time or in the structure. They actually had to break their way out the back door of the building to actually exit the structure. So as part of this grant in 2012, we had Veneer Construction Management and CYS Structural Engineers complete the seismic retrofit study. And a little before that, in 2005, we had used some CDBG funding to do an initial study on the fire hall. And basically what came out of both the studies is that the biggest problem we have with the fire hall has a substandard lateral system, which means that basically the shell of the building is only supported by gypsum board, which is the interior wall sheeting, kind of like the sheetrock, and we have a transit, it's an asbestos siding. There is no plywood or lateral structure on the building. laterally supporting the building. So what that means in a seismic event, once we start to shake, what happens, you get what's called drift. The building starts to sway, the building starts to move. The more drift, the weaker that structure becomes, and basically it builds on itself. That structure just will hit critical failure and most likely will collapse in any seismic event that we have. So this project, and the other thing is that what they found in that study was there was very little anchoring of the building to the foundation, which is another pretty big issue. And the roof structure, as well as the walls, the roof also does not have that lateral support. So improvements that were proposed to bring this, so the one thing we have to keep in mind, the grant just is going to only fund the seismic upgrades to the building. So the improvements that will bring the building up to standards and protect our structure are add sheathing to the exterior and interior walls. So this means all the existing siding, asbestos siding is going to come off the building. We're going to have to tear the roof off the building. All the interior board's going to come off and it'll be replaced. We'll resheet the building with plywood. We're going to put on a new hardy plank siding. We'll re-roof the building. Probably use we'll probably use a membrane roof. Longer lasting. And then we'll put all new wall board inside the building. And the other big portion of this is the steel moment frame around the bay doors. That's why I brought that action report up from the 94 event down in Northridge. Our bay doors, we have 4 bay doors right now. And what we're proposing is to put a steel structure around those bay doors. So the other thing that came out of this report is there's almost no support around those bay doors right now. The walls have just little or no support around them. So in the event of, we have a seismic event, we're probably going to experience the same thing. Those doors will be inoperable. We won't be able to get any equipment out. So the steel moment frame is basically what it is. It's a steel structure, heavy duty steel structure that'll go around those bay doors, and then we'll have some new foundations and footings, and it'll be cemented concrete into the ground. And then the other thing, we'll add more anchoring of the structure to the foundation. They'll add some more anchor points in the exterior of the building. And this is kind of schematic to showing you the existing fire hall and some of the upgrades proposed. Shot of the roof. Again, these are some elevations of the existing fire hall. So here's the fire hall. And as you can see, we have the 4 bay doors out front. So the steel moment frame obviously will go around the front of the structure. That's the east wall. Again, the north wall, south wall, and the west wall of the building. So all of the siding, you'll see this whole building will actually be re-sided. We'll have new sheeting across the whole structure. And the engine bay roof. This is a roof that will be replaced. This roof will be torn off. All the existing sheeting will be removed, new sheeting will be put in place, a new roof. Existing bay doors, and what we're proposing, which is kind of a good opportunity for us as well, was to, I know currently these are kind of small bay doors, so the engines have kind of grown in size over the years, so they're in a tight fit for the firefighters to back their equipment in. So what we proposed is to replace the 4 bay doors with 2 bay doors. We've also, what they've tried to do is to capitalize and get them as high as they possibly can get for clearance. And having the 2 doors gives you more width there to maneuver the engines and get them in there properly. So this is kind of a look, it'll be an after look. These are some architectural renderings. And kind of gives you a bit of an idea what the facility will look like after the project. So as Sue's already mentioned in her report, we've been awarded the grant funding. The award amount, the total project, I'll say, is about, we estimated $915,954. The award amount then was for $686,966, and our match was $228,988. Obviously, the budget is good news. That was one of the things we were faced with when we asked for this grant, was how are we going to come up with the match. I mean, this is great news. We're not looking at any type of debt service for this facility. This is a huge project for our community. We definitely living in the high seismic zone that we live in. And we're looking at Cascadia event. We also have the Triple Junction to the south of us. We know just a few days ago we had a quake down there. It was felt up here. So there's a high probability that we're going to get a probably decent sized event sometime in the future. Again, tonight what we're asking for is the authorization for the city manager to be the authorizing agent. So part of accepting the funds and being able to expend the funds, we have to designate that person, and that needs to be done by resolution, and that's what we brought forth tonight.
Thank you. Is there any council comment?
I had just one quick question. Eric, will the new bay doors, will you be able to open those manually in case there was a power outage or the trucks could get out?
Yeah, they'll always have that backup, and then they can open them
Okay,
manually.
okay.
And Steve could probably answer that a little better, how they're set up currently.
Because it didn't sound like that other fire station did.
Well, they were just unable to open them. The structure failed. So actually the structure
Oh, the
kind of
whole thing
collapsed in and prevented those doors from being opened manually or electronically. They actually had to break through the rear doors to get out of the building.
Okay, thanks.
Get them out. Okay. Did you have a question or comment?
I just was going to ask if you could just remind me, is there a time for expending these funds? Is it like 3 years?
We have
or
3 years to
3
complete
years?
the project.
Okay.
I don't anticipate this being a 3-year project. The environmental's pretty much, it's done. We'll file a notice of exemption for the CEQA end of things. And here's the facilities plans. The concept plan's already completed, so we have the plans. We'll be putting out, next thing's put our RFP out to get the actual engineered plans put together, and then once we have those in place, we can put this project out to bid.
I'm thinking next summer?
I don't see why not. This project should move forward pretty quickly.
That was my next question, was how soon can we begin?
As soon as we just, after tonight, if you guys authorize a resolution and accept the grant, we'll be able to start expending the funding. And actually some of this work that's been done was pre-construction costs, so we can apply for some of this funding back that we've already expended. And we just move it forward. We anticipate that our plans checks and in building inspection, we can probably do that in-house since we have our new building inspector on board. So we'll have a lot of control over this project and be able to move it forward.
I would, by the beginning of the year, we'll have or in the next month or two, we'll have a project, schedule for this.
Okay.
And we'll get that to the council, so we can kind of keep ourselves accountable and move this project forward within, all the other projects that we are working on and doing. I'll sit down with Mr. Taylor, Mr. Weird, and see when we can get this completed as soon as possible.
Okay.
So back to my question a little bit ago, is there any public input on the actual building itself? Or have the firefighters had any input?
I'll
Come on.
We had meetings and we had a committee of firefighters that met with them and talked about what we wanted and how we wanted it done. And some of the projects aren't included in this. We're looking at CDBG money for some other changes upstairs and stuff later, but the basic ideas came out of that group. So.
Yeah, that's our stress, that the funding is specifically for the seismic upgrades,
Right.
the seismic retrofit. So it doesn't give you a lot of input from architectural features.
I gotcha. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Chief,
Good.
when we've gone along and enjoyed the controlled burns that you have, I've been real impressed with the equipment that you have and real impressed with the expense of that equipment.
Yeah.
We need to do this, if for no other reason, to keep that equipment from getting damaged.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because I think you said the ladder truck was $2 million, or?
No.
No?
But close to a half.
Let's make it, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, forget
They're expensive. Yeah, it's
You're
something you
you're
wanna
not on the
just-
budget committee, Holly.
Yeah. You want to buy another one if they're that cheap?
Yeah.
Ladder truck's probably about 700,000 these days.
So I'm not so
I would
impressed after all.
guess.
No,
Yeah.
I appreciate the efforts at protecting that
And the
equipment.
main thing is we got to be able to get out of the building.
Yeah.
We got to get that truck to where it's really needed. I mean, there may not be any lives at risk in the fire hall, but what about Crescent Elk or, you know, apartment buildings all over town and, you know, so, and all the equipment's on those engines, so we gotta be able to access it.
Thank
And
you.
I also have a good relationship with the other fire department that has an empty station, so we'll be able to have cheap, place to put the engines during the construction stuff, so,
That sounds good.
That other chief?
yeah.
Yeah.
He'll work right along with me.
Me, myself, and I?
Yeah.
You guys think alike, don't you?
Yeah, pretty much. We spent a lot of time together.
Any other council comments?
They have the same wife.
All right, any public comment on our new retrofitting fire department? If not, I'll entertain a motion for this resolution.
I happily will move to approve Resolution 2013-27 for the City of Crescent City to designate our city manager as the authorizing agent for the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program number 1968 PJ 008706R Fire Hall Seismic Retrofit Project.
Is there a second?
Mouthful.
I'd happily second that.
Good, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Would you pull the vote?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Shalom?
Yes.
Councilmember Gastineau?
Yes.
Councilmember Murray?
I happily approve that.
Mayor Pro Tem Holly?
Yes.
And Mayor
Go ahead.
Nia.
Yes, thank you. We move on to city council items now. Do we have any legislative matters? No legislative matters. City managers report, do you have anything else to report tonight? No? Okay, we'll go over reports, concerns, referrals, council travel, and training. Councilmember Murray, I think we'll start with you tonight.
Okay.
Anything to report?
On the 10th of this month, we had the Local Transportation Commission meeting where we had a presentation by Caltrans on last chance grade, and I believe that it's open to two-lane traffic now, according to our Executive Director, Tamara Layton, in an email correspondence. On the 15th, I listened to Congressman Huffman's town hall on the government shutdown, and learned at the federal level alone, doesn't count the state or local levels, that it was costing us $3 million a day. So I'm glad we have that resolved. And then I had lunch with our league representative, Sarah Rounds, last week, and we have the Redwood Empire Division of the California League of Cities location set up for Ukiah in March, Fort Bragg in May, and Blue Lake in July. And that's my report.
Thank you. Mr. Ollie?
Thank you. My report will be brief today. For those of you who may not know it, the Solid Waste Management Authority is looking at hiring a consultant to look at its operations. And this is in response to a lot of the confusion and concerns regarding the authority. And it's become a little bit more formalized. So I spent a lot of Wednesday afternoon with Martha Rice and Ted Ward looking at the scope of responsibilities for this consultant. And so that will be a special meeting this Wednesday, I believe.
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock this Wednesday to consider this proposal, or this RFP, and we'll see how that goes. I think it'll go a long way maybe to answering all of our questions at the same time by an objective source. So I was out of town for the rest of the time, so that's my report.
Councilmember Salon?
Good luck with that. Okay, so we had a really fantastic sea cruise, and Chamber was very pleased with the results. We had there were more than 350 cars that...
I heard the last was 400.
It wasn't 400, but I think it was closer to 370 something, but so a great turnout on entries, and everything actually went really well. The dance was amazing. We had, I'm going to guess, 500 or 600 people in attendance, and so it was just the new band was a huge hit, and people had a really great time. There was not one single problem the entire night, so I was really pleased with that. A lot of volunteer work went into this event, so I wanted to thank everybody for that. Mr. Taylor won a trophy for his car. I told you you did. You have to show up for the awards. So what kind of car do you have? 69 Corvette.
Wow.
He's been holding out on us.
Yes.
So congratulations, pretty cool. Did Mr. Plack win an award? Or these employees enter their cars and then they have to like take off and work or something. So Mr. Plack has a beautiful Cobra himself, so good job, guys. And then this Thursday we have one of our final meetings for the Camden Sutter group meetings, and I will hopefully tell you more after that.
Okay. Continued.
To be continued. Thank you, that's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Gastineau.
Yeah, I also attended the local transportation meeting about last month's grade, and it was very informative. It's unfortunate it takes years and years for these plans to even come out, or to get the funding, or even to have Caltrans look at something that might be gone in hours, days, and totally isolate us. So at least we're getting it going, we're lighting fires under people, and that's always a good thing. I also attend the bike and their Safe Bike and Walk to School Day last Wednesday. Councilmember Murray was there with me at Mary Peacock, and it was very nice. My wife teaches there, so I was just Mr. Gastineau that day. And had lots of parents' input, and it was very good experience. And then last Friday, Mayor Annie and I met with BID board members Tracy Fansler and Cheryl Korpstein, and we talked about assessments. And currently, only about 20 businesses out of the 90 plus in the Business Improvement District have paid their assessments voluntarily. And that brought in probably about just a little under $2,000. And so there is no Christmas this year. No Christmas parade, no tree lighting. The Business Improvement District is a very important aspect of our community. I remember lots of people in here, heated discussions about how if it was voluntary, they would pay. And I don't see them on this list that we have. So that's an unfortunate thing for our community. And if the bid did go away, if they did a downtown association, it would take at least $2,500 a year for them just to cover their operating insurance costs, not doing any events or anything like that. And under the city umbrella, they don't have to pay that with events. So it was very informative. We're definitely trying to go forward with what we can now with BID, but it just doesn't look encouraging for the downtown district or Crescent City for the holidays. So.
No Halloween parade either?
No Halloween parade either.
Anything else? That's it? Okay. I also attended the Sea Cruise both Friday and Saturday, and like Kelly said, it was a great thing. Went to the Chamber Mixer last week. That was held at Club 2020. You were there too?
Club 2020?
Is it called Club 20?
No, it's called the club.
No, they changed the name.
They did?
Yeah, I think it's called Club 20 something. For whatever it is, they changed it. Also, Councilmember Murray was talking about the El Tico meeting, and I'm the chair of El Tico, and our vice chair, Supervisor Hemmingson, and I will be meeting in 2 weeks, maybe 2 weeks, with Congressman Huffman is coming up, and he wants to tour that area of Last Chance. And of course, they just took the signal light out today. He's coming in 2 weeks, and so he wants to come up there and tour the area and familiarize himself of all the stuff that's going on there, all the reports we've had done over the years, the cost, and as you know, that's a U.S. highway, and we're hoping that he can help us through federal money too. So he is very interested, and he will be up here to go over that area with us. It'll be Tamara Layton, our director, and Supervisor Hemmingson and I, and Caltrans, and state parks, national parks, and the Forest Service. So I'll report out on that meeting after we do that with the congressman which will be in a couple of weeks.
What about Green Diamond?
And Green Diamond, thank you. Green Diamond also. And so that's will be meeting there. I think that's about all that I have for tonight. We are going to adjourn to a closed session. We still have some items to talk about in closed session. So thank you for coming this evening. Our next meeting will be on Monday, November 4th. Meeting's adjourned.